Welcome to another episode of One on One with Vasports Media, where we dialogue with past legends, current athletes, future sports stars, and everyone who keeps the sports wheel turning locally, regionally, and internationally. I'm your host, Vernon A. Springer, and we've got a phenomenal guest who's waiting to educate, empower, and inspire you. Stay connected to Vasports Media on all of our social media platforms. If it's sports, Vasports got you covered. Welcome to another episode of the one-on-one conversation on the Vasports Media platform. I'm your host, Vernon A. Springer, and today I have one of my mentors, somebody who has worked very closely with me in terms of my coaching career and my sports administration career over the years. Somebody who I've respected tremendously, not only in Antigua and Barbuda, but a wider part of the Caribbean. His name is Chet Greene, and we're talking to Chet Greene, the sportsman first. Good day, sir, and welcome to another episode of the one-on-one conversation on Vasports Media.
I thank you, my brother. A pleasure always to be in your company, and I'm humbled by the introductions you have given.
Now let's talk about Chet Greene, and which area is Chet Greene from in Antigua and Barbuda?
Born in the village of Liberta, parish of St. Paul, somewhere back in the 1960s. It's like a very long time. I feel like an older person now. A few years ago, I felt like a young man playing sports. But I was born in Liberta, grew up there, went to school there, formative years, before going on to Alton Secondary. Next door secondary school, that is, at age 11. I did my common entrance at what was then Junior 4. I think they call it grade 5. Grade 5 is called now.
Yes.
So even that has changed.
Now, your sporting career, Minister, in that era coming up, Chet Greene. Chet Greene was a powerhouse, played cricket, played football. Show you ran to, because you were quick on your feet.
Well, the truth is, I never consider myself to be any powerhouse in sports. But I would say this, I started playing first class cricket when I was about 11 years old. I always liked cricket, even though I was afraid of the ball. And so in my formative years playing for Liberta, first class team, played first class before playing Parish League, I used to field from third man to fine leg. So afraid I was of the ball then. But over time, I grew to like it more, became more comfortable and at home with it. Somewhere in that process, a fellow named Winston Mohammed Charles, I'm sure you know Mohammed.
Yes.
I started playing the Parish League team, and the captain was a guy named Aaron Challenger. He was about to retire. And I was not the best cricketer, I must admit. You had people like Quimbo Locks, Kowisi Walsh, which is Hayden Walsh, Hungry Walsh's brother, the oldest brother. Emmett Matthew, now deceased. All these guys played for the same Parish League team. But somewhere, somehow, Mohammed Charles said to the selectors of the Liberta cricket team then, I am recommending Chet for the captain, or captaincy. He has leadership potential. We want a leader, not just a player. And I think I took that particular thing to heart, that particular attribute or recognition of attribute to heart. And I think it has really fashioned my life over time. So I captained Liberta Parish League team for several years. I would have captained all the greats in Liberta. I captained Hayden Walsh, my late cousin, his brother Hungry, Chick Walsh, his brother Jama Walsh. I captained Polo Cornwall, all the guys I would have captained them. I would have played alongside, at least earlier in his career, Jimbo Cornwall, because Jimbo had quite an early advent into cricket. But I also have the record of being the winningest captain in the Liberta Parish League, winning all the championships 1 year for Liberta. Emerged from a fast bowler by the end of my playing career, if I call it that. I was quite an established all-rounder, playing many successful knocks for the community, and I really enjoyed what I did, leading the team. A bunch of men who today remain close friends. I also played some softball cricket, rubber ball cricket, because in the area of the village I'm from, we had the Trenton Bridge cricket team, which is, again, the winningest softball team in Antigua's softball history. And so I have that too as part of my history. And things that my grandchildren may do come. I enjoyed it. Football, I should also say I played cricket at school level, junior cricket. I still have a record, I think, somewhere in the Alton Secondary School. 3 wickets, 1 run was a hat-trick. Even though the third wicket, the guy complained that he think the umpire just wanted to do me a favor. Of course, I was the bowler. And I do what bowlers are called upon to do, appeal when you think you hit somebody in front. And so he can complain. He's part of the history, part of the record. Was against Spears Secondary School too, with the likes of Gunnar Joseph, you know. There's a real duels we had over those years. Cricket was really intense, real sweet. I can't say I enjoyed the game as much now as I did then. As captain of the Liberta cricket team, I was out there Saturday mornings when I should have been in church, wetting, preparing the pitch for matches. Traveled on the bus, parked my car, traveled on the bus to Freetown, to Willikes. Real lovely days of cricket. Then we had the Parish League team also playing the Thursday League competition. Another feat and a historical record for Liberta. I don't think there's any team in Antigua that won the Thursday League more times than we did. We attracted some of the big guns to our community team. Ralph Sanato would have played with us. Eldin Baptist, when he was home, would have come back home to play for Parish League team. Curtly Ambrose, Ridley Jacobs. You know, so Liberta's always been a top-notch team. And you know, on Thursdays, it's middle of the week, and so a lot of guys who are traditional players of the village could not play because of work. But there's a very interesting thing that happens every year with the Parish League Thursday League program. The big names, the who is who in cricket in Liberta, did not bother to leave their workplaces during the week in the formative or the early stage of competition. But once we get on the semifinals and finals, man, everybody became available.
Everybody wanted to win.
Selected the team was all been in trouble. I remember a fellow named Kenneth Benjamin being banned. Long time rude boy, a long time the fellow had no good conduct. He was banned on Thursday. He worked with me. I've always treated him like, you know, somebody special. I was then sales manager of Colonial Life Insurance Company and employed him as a salesman. And so three of us, Kenneth, a guy named Michael Boster, Clark, and I used to travel with my car to these matches every Thursday. So we came down to the finals and the selectors, they're leaving out Boster. And Kenneth decided, no, this is not right. He was not playing, I'm not playing. Everybody thought he was joking. It turned out we batted first. He didn't bat. He was not a batter, so nobody really cared about him not batting. But when we took the field, his part of the game, he refused to take the field. And if you heard the kind of language Kenneth had on the periphery, I mean, people wondered if his mother was not really there selling, because his mother was a vendor, followed the team everywhere we went, and his conduct was really. You there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm here. I'm here, you know, yeah.
He didn't play the match, and we lost the game, so that made it worse. Wow. The Liberta Cricket Club was called then, decided to discipline him. And of course, he challenged the discipline. He was just breaking through. Everybody saw him breaking through West Indies, Leeward Islands. And, you know, as his boss in Colonial Life, I spoke to him. I had the enviable task of writing a suspension letter as his boss in the workplace. And then after the chief came on, Liberta, his mother and others said that, oh, you can't ban him. And he go out to Antigua and West Indies, they all can't stop him. And the then president of the cricket club, a fellow named Leroy Tong, called the executive together. And I should tell you, I was also secretary of the cricket club in Liberta then.
Oh my.
So I played dual role.
Yes.
Called him and said, no, this can't work. This is indiscipline to the core. We're going to take action against Kenneth for what he did. And so we wrote to the ACA. Again, I had the awkward task. As his boss at the workplace, his friend, having to write a letter to the ACA asking that they uphold the suspension of the Liberta Cricket Club. I remember he was suspended and he appealed the suspension, claiming that the Parish League program is not a recognized program in Antigua. Because, you know, you have two entities, you have the Cricket Association and the Sports and Games Department. But he forgot that the Sports and Games Department was affiliated to the National Cricket Association to the extent that there was always a Parish League team in the first class competition. And so he went before Sir Gerald Watt. I can remember that meeting like it happened yesterday. Sir Gerald Watt was then the chairman of the disciplinary committee of the ACA. And there was Kenneth in his typical boisterous, rude boy fashion trying to defend his position. And Sir Gerald said to him, young man, why don't you hush your mouth? Every time you open your mouth, you put your foot further down your throat. I remember that like yesterday. And so I see Kenneth today, you know, behaving that kind of way. I'm not surprised. That is just Kenneth Benjamin, loudmouth, very little of substance. But Liberta, we had very, very good days of cricket. I enjoyed my community service. I remember my very first match in the first class team. Like I said, I was 11 years old. I had to steal my clothes out of my parents' house because I grew up in Adventist church.
Yes.
It was a 2-day game in Bowlands. That's when I got to meet for the first time the indomitable Sir Tyrone Pacer Williams. He lived just back on the cricket field, and he came out in his blazer. And I remember Trevor Simon asking me, a youngster, 11-year-old youngster, you know who that is? I said, no, Tyrone Pacer Williams. Of course, I knew the name because by then I was following Antigua cricket and so on, so I knew the name. And, you know, T. Willie and I, from that, they became friends until now. One of the nicest persons I've met in this country. And on your program, I just want to take time to salute him, celebrate him. He has done quite a bit of work in sports and sports development, even now. He still curates the Bowlands playing field and is very much an integral part in his community development. But that, I think, in a nutshell, is will represent my formative years and perhaps, by extension, my cricketing years in my community of Liberta.
What about the football?
Football, I didn't play much football. I played at school level, both senior and junior levels. But I should go back before I go to football to tell you that both Winston Benjamin, and Curtly Ambrose really came into their own later in life because they could not make a school team ahead of me. If Winston is listening, he'll have his own version for that. He'll tell you the sports master of the school was then from Liberta. And so I had the edge of geography. But great guys. Football, I played both junior and senior football for since secondary school. 1-minute championship. I was a defender. Played at the community level, community league, but I never went on to play for Liberta. However, it is in football that I think I'm more remembered because I was secretary of the Liberta Football Club, represented the football club one year at a meeting of the AFA, it was then called. And in that meeting, a colleague of mine in government now, Lennox Weston, was the president of the Football Association. And the challenger for that year's election was a fellow named St. Clair Crump. He's now deceased. And Weston brought out a pamphlet, really criticizing Crump, the challenger. And at that meeting, I got up and spoke, as I was wont to do. I mean, as a youngster, I was a firebrand. Eh? You know, I'm quiet. I'm an older person, more balanced in my positions and more, reserved. But I got up in that meeting and I said to Weston and others, to the meeting, what I'm seeing here has no place in sports. Why this kind of acrimonious behavior? Why this kind of attack on somebody simply because they're challenging you? And I went to that meeting simply to represent Liberta. When I left, I was secretary of the AFA, a position I held for what, all of 12 years. I eventually lost the position when persons thought I was going too powerful. And so they set up on me, including Chet Benjamin, set up on me with all kinds of rumors and wild accusations, none of which could be proved then, can be proven even now. But it was what they had to do to get rid of me, and they succeeded. I lost it. As a matter of fact, for the first time in that election of 2004, I vied for the presidency of the AFA. By then, I was on all the commissions in FIFA, all the commissions in CONCAF, CFU, as vice president of CFU. But it was nasty, a very nasty attack on me here at home. A fellow named Gordon Derrick succeeded in becoming secretary of the association. Mervyn Richards became president. I lost the election by 3 votes, despite all of the nastiness that was said about me. My name was bandied on Observer Radio. It was a staple. Attacking Chet Greene was prime time. I met a fellow named Julian Rogers in Trinidad years after becoming a minister of government, and he said he wanted to treat me to dinner. I wondered why, because he was the one who carried the attack on me more than anybody else. And he apologized to me profusely for what was then the attack against me. So, he worked for a family radio station, and that was a family position of attacking me because a family member wanted the position I held. And if you know me, I don't hold grudges. I'm easygoing. I'm like Sunday morning. And so I don't hold it against Gordon Derrick, against Julian Rogers, or anybody who might have in that period gone after me the way they did. As a matter of fact, I tell you, Vernon, if they had not gone after me that way, perhaps I would not be where I am today. because I was so satisfied, so comfortable in football, global football arrangements, that I really didn't, even though politics was always a part of my, my interest, I was so comfortable serving football at local, regional, international levels that I really wasn't pursuing a political career at all. It is after they came after me, and more so since they could not prove anything, I made myself available to political office. Now, even the things that they said about me were in any way true, I would not be able to raise my head politically. But I would have gone through all the campaigns of 2009 when I first ran, and nobody dared say the thing they would say privately, publicly. Then I came back in 2014. I lost in 2009 to Fred Nambalumba Adams with the help of Willie George, who was a member of my party and who thought that he should have been the candidate. The very number of votes that he amassed in the election was the number of votes I lost by. So, but again, for me, I won't carry sour grapes. I like sweet fruits, not sour ones, and so I moved on. In 2009, after losing the election, Sylvester Bird made me a senator, appointed me a senator to the upper chamber of the parliament. And that was a good experience for me. It helped me to cut my teeth into parliamentary procedures, a better understanding of the local politics, and focus my attention on a political career. By 2014, I won the seat in St. Paul's, resoundingly, I should say. And then by 2018, I was returned again for a second time as the MP for St. Paul's. In 2014, after the elections, I was given ministerial responsibility for sports, culture, trade, and other portfolio positions. In 2018, Prime Minister Brown thought that I did a good enough job and gave me a proverbial kick upstairs, where today I serve as Foreign Affairs Minister with responsibility still for trade, which is one of the foundation ministries I had in 2014, and also added to my portfolio responsibilities that of immigration. And so I think in a few short minutes, I've given you Chet Greene, both the sports person and the political person.
Well, Chet, let's get into the thick of things concerning what's happening on the world global scene when it comes in terms of football. And I know you're very much concerned as to what is happening with FIFA and the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation. Some people think that it is a good thing, but I know you've been around. Your thoughts on that, Chet?
It's a sad development. There's always this notion in FIFA that there's football and there's the law. In other words, if you don't follow FIFA's prescription, you can't be part of the organization. But I think having served in both capacities, I now understand what sovereign states represent. And so FIFA cannot pretend itself to be a sovereign state or that its rules are above those of sovereign nations. And so what is doing in Trinidad is regrettable, it's unfortunate, and I'm hoping that at the end of it, it was resolved. It will really recalibrate the relations between FIFA and national associations, or the role of national associations in membership with FIFA, as juxtaposed against the sovereignty of nations and the right of nations to have that kind of structure and respect from international organizations like FIFA. The case is a very interesting case. I have no legal credentials. I'm a lawmaker without legal credentials. And so again, I'm using my experience and knowledge, having served in both capacities, to fashion a position on this matter. It's unfortunate, it's regrettable, and it will be more than regrettable if a court finds FIFA to be right to go into a country and to dissolve a duly elected executive, notwithstanding what the issues might be. That is a matter for nations to deal with. That's a matter for the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation to deal with. If FIFA feels that the executive is not worthy or deserving of membership, then find some article in statute to challenge their legitimacy, not to disband them and to impose on a nation, a national structure, an executive that you think can carry out your bidding. And it's time that kind of thing stop. I don't know when, how, but it certainly runs against the grain of what is expected of international institutions in relationship with sovereign governments, sovereign states.
Are you concerned about Caribbean football, Chet?
That still exists?
Well, it certainly means, and you raise a good point there, because the Caribbean Football Union head is very quiet on the entire matter. Just exactly what you said. They're saying, well, you're part of FIFA, you have to abide by FIFA rules. But I know in your time and the late and Austin Jack Warner, you guys would have been vocal on the matter, regardless of whatever the position is. But the present head today, Randy Harris, is just moving along with the spectrum and talking about how much money FIFA puts into the football and all those sorts of scenarios.
Reception is terrible.
The
reception is terrible, but I'll pick up from what I heard you, what I understand you to be saying. It's a pity that the leadership of Caribbean football has veered away so far from its moorings. Because again, a study of history will show that the gains of Caribbean football are many and are to be protected and preserved. You can take away the personalities, you can take away the Jack Warner, the Lyle Austin, and other persons who served, but you cannot pretend that there are not great gains within the context of Caribbean football when put into the realm of the global power structures. The Caribbean, sheer numbers, were able to control and dominate CONCACAF once Terrazas, the Mexican, was dislodged by Jack Warner. The Caribbean competitions, both male and female, junior and seniors, those are not simple achievements. They came with great fights. People not know. And those who are there should take time, stop and study history. The Caribbean's presence in CONCACAF, the Caribbean's presence in the World Cup, those are not simple achievements. They didn't happen overnight. In football. And so I can only this morning implore those who sit in the seats of authority in Caribbean football to not forget, or rather put another way, to become students of their own history, so that they can understand that the gains, the platform on which they function, operate, was not always what it is. That there are several challenges, several fights. The person can tell you when the meeting took place in Guatemala, when Jack Warner became president. Caribbean delegates had to hide on the beds because there were threats against their lives for voting against the Mexican powerhouse of Terrazas. I mean, it's a long story. It needs to be told. And if nobody else needs to know it, those who occupy the positions of authority should know it. Because when you elevate, when you take it from the capitals of the Caribbean countries to the CFU, into CONCACAF and into FIFA, you'll realize that there's no return of some of those old habits where we've been treated in backwater fashions. And I'm not suggesting that FIFA is anything but a decent organization. But in organizations, you have to understand your history if you're going to find a place on which to land and to earn or to eke out the benefits that can be derived for your people. Jack Warner may have had all of his flaws, may have had all of his problems, challenges, but the one thing that history records, that he fought for Caribbean integration into the structures of global football.
No, Chet,
whatever you may say about him,
whatever.
Anybody who takes time to study the history of Caribbean football and the rise and even fall of Jack Warner must give some credit that he's a Caribbean person, true and true, who fought for the arrival of Caribbean nations within the power structures of.
No.
The signal is very bad, and you're breaking.
Okay. Now let's talk about the racism in sports, and I know you're very strong on that, and the IOC's position on a number of matters. We know that we have the statutes, but at the same time, do you think that will change based on how the IOC was thinking before?
Could you repeat, Vernon? I lost everything.
I was saying to you, racism in sports and the build-up. We have the International Olympic Committee, who still has statutes 50.2. That is still a big, strong mandate and discussion around. Do you think that the IOC will yield to the pressure in terms of what is coming around globally to maybe change or revamp that statute?
Well, the racism in sports is real. Let's admit, IOC, any of the international organizations will tell you that they have to fight. I mean, again, once you have people involved in organizations, people bring their own personal biases and prejudices to the table. It is incumbent on the management, the leadership of the organization, to have policies anti-discrimination, not only racial, but anti-discrimination of any sort. In the IOC, you'll have seen, I'm sure, where our president of CANOC, Brian Lewis, would have written about two African-American athletes who were banned by the IOC. And in this era of the fight against racism in sports, Brian has asked the IOC to reverse his position and to honor the medal winning achievements of those two athletes. It's going to be a fight almost to the finish. And that is why I want to go back to football and suggest that those who are in commanding positions of Caribbean football take time to study the history from whence we came. I didn't call it by that name when I spoke a while ago, but there was and still is widespread racism in football. And our Caribbean brothers who are managing the platform of football must understand where they came from, be frontal in their attacks against racism, even when it is, in very delicate and clouded fashions. Racism can result in you losing spots in the World Cup, where racism can result in you losing funding for programs for development in the region. And so you have to be so careful in spotting it and naming it as it appears. Anytime you raise its ugly head, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of anybody who may even challenge you for calling them or their policies racist. You have to be unashamed, you have to be bold, and be prepared to fight this fight. This is a fight for generations, for centuries. And as long as you have people of different races in organizations, there will always be a tendency to have racial tensions, racial policies, racial slurs occupying the epicenter sometimes of the organization. Now, and here's where I think Jack Warner must be given full credit, because the integration of Caribbean countries in world football, as seamless as it seemed by the time he left, was not really a seamless job. It was a labor of love and a committed position to ensuring that equality be the watchword, buzzword, and practice in FIFA.
We have a situation, Chet, where the West Indies team is in England for a 3-test series. Your own hometown boy, Rakhim Khan, and from Antigua and Barbuda, Alzari Joseph are part of that lineup. I wanted to spend some time on the elevation of Rakhim Khan and the fight, because you also were very vocal as to the way Rakhim Khan was treated by the authorities.
It wasn't very easy. And, as we talk about racism in sports, we have to talk about other prejudices, because Rakhim Khan, though black in a West Indies setup, was victimized. He was victimized because he did not carry the average size of an athlete. But then who says that an athlete must be of a particular size and structure, physical structure? Rakhim Khan played in the Caribbean competitions among slim-bodied men with six-pack stomachs, who could not get him off the square when he bowled, or who could not dislodge him when he batted, and who could not edge a ball to him anywhere in the field, lest they, are walking back to the pavilion. So in other words, I'm saying that Rakhim Khan, notwithstanding his physical structure, was always a competitive athlete. And I think when you get to international sports, that is what matters, competitiveness. At the junior levels, you can try to fashion athletes look into what is traditional stereotype athlete or athleticism. But at the professional level, what matters most is that element called performance. And Rakhim Khan has been robbed several times for several years, denied the right, not opportunity, the right to selection, because the right to selection is based on performance. And on every occasion, on every instance, he outperformed his peers. No matter where from, he outperformed them. Your greatest batsman fell victim to his bowling. Your greatest bowlers suffered at his batting prowess. And so to see him finally being given the nod, I am elated. I really feel that is a most deserving selection. And if we were to talk about the losses incurred through poor administration or victimization, it's a pity that the fellow was not allowed to play sooner, because we'd have had much more many more wickets, much more runs, would have been a more established player. If Rakhim was given the nod 3 years before, as we all expected he would have been, by now he'd have been a seasoned veteran in the context of world cricket. not only West Indies, but world cricket. And so I'm hoping that Rakhim stays fit, stays true to his calling, and realize that, you know, those of us who fought this fight are not only hoping and expecting, but demanding from him the kinds of performances that we know he's capable of. The first is exceptional talent. And, you know, one of the persons who helped me to understand Rakhim more than anybody else was the great Sir Vivian. He told me, look at the fella's hands, his palms, they're like a bucket, you know, anything goes in, doesn't come out. And then he has that sense of self-worth. Many youngsters would have broken, would have cracked under the weight of criticism. Rakhim has proven that he's a true athlete. He withstood all the pressures, all the criticism about his weight. And year after he went back and proved all of them wrong, every single one of them wrong, by performing and outperforming his peers. And so a deserving selection. I'm hoping he does well in England. That first of all, they pick him, because even though he's in the team, I am still wary of a little, you know, a little tendency here and there. I think he's now a solid, dependable bowler. He needs to step up to the table and score some more runs, as we know he can, and to cement himself in the team for keeps, for all times. By the time his career is done, Rakhim Khan, if he delivers on his potential, will be a name, a household name in world cricket. All those who denied him will come to New Village in Liberta to say sorry, because they have wronged this young man, you know, and robbed him of at least 3 years of his professional career. I know he's working to maintain his fitness. You know, a man of his size, so 6'9", something like that. Yeah. He's a big fellow. And people wonder how he gets the ball to bounce that much. If you just look at the fellow's structure, his anatomy, you realize that, hey, the height he bowls from will always put batsmen in trouble. And so here Lance Gibbs, for example, another great who I revere, rather than being supportive of Rakhim and encouraging and even showing him some of the pointers from an old spin bowler's point of view, ridiculing him. I really wonder where to the Caribbean. Because, you know, sometimes I wonder if our greats are wary or afraid of other people eclipsing their own performances. And if we really love West Indies cricket, with every new generation of players we have, those who came before should be given pointers, given encouragement, given support, so that the West Indies cricket brand stays afloat. So people like Lance Gibbs and Viv Richards and Andy Roberts and Clive Lloyd and Gordon Greenidge and all of them who played, the only way their names can live on is through the performance of those who come after. I want to repeat it. The only way that the names of the greats who have gone can live on forever is through the performance or performances of those who come after. The immortality of their names depend on the performance of those who come in their shadow. And so they have it, they owe themselves even to give support to those who come after. I know Sir Andy sometimes can be very critical, but very supportive. I know Sir Viv is a consummate believer in West Indies cricket and cricket talents. Sometimes maybe not talking enough as I think he should, because if people like him were adding his voice to Rakhim's plight, I believe some people have backed away a long time, because when Viv talks, the world listens. He's the ultimate cricket authority. But Rakhim has made it this far with whatever support he's gotten from Sir Viv, Sir Andy, other greats. I know that one person has been miffed out of Rakhim's achievement list, a fellow from Ulster named Pernell Roxy Joseph. Very few people remember that in those days when Rakhim was just a baby, a boy, and some people were ridiculing him for his size. Roxy allowed him to captain teams in a school he didn't belong to. Just spotting raw talent. And of course, Springer, I know you're modest, you're humble, and would not want to say so, but you have to take a lot of credit, or be given at least a lot of credit, for Rakhim's current status. Because amidst the noises, you persevered. You gave encouragement, you gave critical support. So today, the product we're seeing, the product we're enjoying in Rakhim Cornwall, people like yourself must be given, awesome and enormous credit. His uncle Will, then, of course, cannot be left out of the list of who is who, of persons who really gave Rakhim that critical support needed. And Rakhim himself will have displayed, as I said earlier, a level of self-worth. A lot of youngsters will have really flipped, cracked, and broken, or would have, certainly not gotten as far, because the pressures were enormous. So it speaks to his sportsmanship. It speaks to his spirit as an athlete, his competitive spirit, which is what we need in West Indies team today.
Now, finally, what are you doing these days? Hiking? What else are you into since the COVID? What else are you into these days since the COVID? I see that you've been hiking and so.
Yes, I'm hiking. Well, I've been hiking long before COVID. I'm hiking more now, but I've been hiking before. Every Sunday, for the last 3 years or so, a team of us, 4, sometimes 6 persons, we go hiking. We've discovered all of the hike spots in Antigua. I put up a picture on my WhatsApp some weeks ago, and everybody calling to ask me, "Where's that, Chet? Where's that?" But now I'm telling nobody. Do your own Columbus. Go and discover. All I can tell you is in Antigua and it's in St. Paul's. If you find it, put up your picture, let me see, so I can tell you found it. But it's a great experience. I mean, getting to see the country even more through different lenses is so important. The beauty of this country is surreal. You know, we have so much to offer the world, and I take very much delight in seeing the numbers, sheer numbers of persons who on a weekly basis and weekends take to hiking, to discovering Antigua and Barbuda. Well, Antigua so far. I guess when there's an opening up of the borders, people may even try the Barbuda hiking, but it's just sheer numbers. I go to the Pillars of Hercules, for example, or through Jones Trail. I mean, started Jones Trail in English Harbor. And I watch the numbers. I can't even get a parking. The road to Shirley Heights is truckload of the cars, vehicles. The road down to the hotel, truckload of the cars. Luckily, the guy at the gate at the hotel knows me, and so he allows me to park in the hotel property. You know, it's just a nice feeling to see Antiguans out on the weekends. You know, before at this time of the year when I worked as Minister of Sports, the activity was on the stadium as people try to prepare for the summer bodies. You know, Carnival was the big thing this year because of COVID. The Carnival celebration has been cancelled, but it's good to see that alternative move. I understand the stadium is still chock-loaded with people. I've not gone there for a while, but I understand that there's still numbers walking around the stadium, running around the stadium. But I think that the newest fad is persons hiking across the country. And fortunately for me, in St. Paul's, we have most of the hiking trails. And so I welcome all of Antigua to St. Paul's. I have but one request to make of everybody who's hiking: keep the trails clean. Please keep the trails clean. I don't want to see government having to invest monies in paying persons who want to clean the trails after we've gone. So if you're a hiker who walk with your food items or your whatever water, please take them back with you to a place of you know, where you can dump them, and don't leave them on the trails. It makes for ugly sightings, and certainly is not the environment we should be creating for ourselves.
You follow?
I know a lot of people.
You follow English football?
Not anymore. The truth is, I've really plugged out. I was a commissioner of FIFA up to 2 years ago. I indicated that I would not have the time to do any commissioning, and since then I've really not followed football. When I was following football closely, when football was football, I was a Man U fan. When football was football.
You're Alex, Sir Alex. You were the Sir Alex fan.
Alex. I was a Sir Alex fan. Yeah, a great manager. But you know, the global game has changed quite a bit, I must admit.
It has.
Even the way players are recruited and the crazy money is being paid for transfers, it has really changed the look and feel of the game. Some of the touchline technologies have also, you know, made the game a different game from what it was a few years ago. But still a beautiful game. Still a beautiful game. I will not take anything away from the game. I mean, not because I don't follow it closely, but it is still, in my opinion, the best game ever created.
Minister, as we look to wrap here on the one-on-one conversation on the Vast Sports Media platform, I want your thoughts on how we now look to approach sports and culture in the Caribbean after COVID, so that we could be able to start to get some economic benefits. We've been talking about it, but normally sometimes you look like we can't be united as one front to say, hey, let's move in this direction to make sure that we have people coming to the Caribbean. And I know you're very strong on that. It's a movement that you started.
Well, before we talk about the economics of sports, we should talk about the reorganization of sports, because we are failing in that area. the whole question of community organization of sports, the entry levels or exposure levels for children, I think we need to address those because we're falling back in many ways. Our cricket program, for example, is a result of what we have, over time, caused or seen happen in the region. And so I'd like to see a reorganization of sports to the extent that communities become stronger where sports are concerned. Like the schools programs. In Antigua and Barbuda, for example, we spend quite a bit on wages and salaries for coaches and other professionals in the sports program. The question begs itself: are we getting the buck for the dollar? Our coach is sufficiently committed. Take a coach like Kenneth Benjamin, for example. He has not worked for the last 6 years, but he draws the government's money every month. Can we really claim that that's a fair bit of work for taxpayers' money? And I'm calling him out because he is now venturing into a different area, and so he's fair game, right? But we need to look at even what he does in Liberta. We have a sports club in Liberta which only has one sport: cricket. It's a fight with the footballers. 2 years ago, Liberta cricket football team, on the verge of winning the championship, the coveted premiership in Antigua, were booted from the playing field by Kenneth because he wanted to prepare the field for cricket. The netballers, nothing. Before I left the Ministry of Sports, I repainted and equipped the basketball court. No basketball program. Now, that is not the MP's job when you have a sports club. As MP, I provide critical support, financial support, and other things to the club. But the job of organizing the sports calendar, the sports program, is really that of a sports club. And so that's why I want to see us go back to strong community clubs. And if it's so that we have to form separate clubs for cricket, netball, football, so be it. Mark, I'm a believer in the one club per community concept, which brings all sports in the community under an umbrella of a sports club. But if you have persons who are, one-dimensional in their thinking, that is time in the growth of other sports, then hey, the time might be right to separate them and have individual management for the sports, where the focus can be different and yield the results that I'm talking about as being required here in the strengthening of the community sports programs. I still advocate the community sports and games department in Antigua be reestablished because it provides a bridge between association sports and school sports. A very important bridge. I mean, if we didn't have sports and games, the likes of Kirtley and Bruno so might not have been, become world names. And so there's a bit of organization or reorganization I think we need to do before we think about the economics of sports. Because it is when you have good athletes that you become marketable. St. Kitts Nevis, for example, Kim Collins. When Kim was Kim, running the world, running away from the world, sorry, because he left him behind. When he was really doing that, St. Kitts Nevis Sports was benefiting a whole container of equipment for all of your sports. And that happens only because you have one good athlete. And so we've seen what one good athlete can do for a country and its sports development thrust. With that kind of development, we also need to have greater investments in infrastructure development. And so whilst governments in the Caribbean, especially now, will have challenges maintaining all of the parks and playing fields because of the pressures of the economy on this COVID virus, we need to look at having at least satellite fields, one per parish, where we can stage decent national competitions and move away from centralized sports as we've known it over the years. And so it's a number of things I think we need to look at as we prepare for what you and I believe in as a sector contributing to the economy of the country. We have in Antigua and Barbuda the national stadium, and we host international cricket matches. We've done well in that regard so far. But the other sports that we can also develop infrastructurally to the extent that we can market and bring benefits to the economy. Or where we can have athletes developed to the benefit of national development and national economies. Take boxing. A single boxer can be the difference in a country's GDP. But we need to have the structures at the bottom to build that kind of, talent pool because they exist. And what we need to do also is to get away from this personality cult that we have in sports in Antigua. Our differences in sports in Antigua are not much personal. Why don't I like Chet Greene? Because he boasts. He think he can talk more about everybody else. That is hardly a sporting issue. Let us talk about what we each bring to the table for sports development. And I can tell you, every single person who I've worked with in sports in this country, including Kenneth Benjamin, has ideas that when brought to the table and put into a proper context or called into a program can make a difference. And so before I go into the issue of the export nature of sports, I really want to see us fashion or refashion our national sports agendas, building bottom up the structures required for stronger community involvement, stronger school sports, and then, of course, complement that with some infrastructure development. With those in place, I think we can then venture into the next level of making sports an exportable commodity for our countries and for the region.
Chet Greene, I want to thank you very much for joining us on this episode of the one-on-one conversation on the Vast Sports Media platform. And like I said in my early introduction, you've been one of my mentors. You've been one of the persons that I come to when I started my cricketing coaching career, my sports administration career. You've always worked with me. I sometimes remind people that before you became a minister and when you ventured into politics, we used to talk from St. Kitts and Nevis to Antigua and Barbuda on the development of sports. That's how long we started back that campaign. A lot of people don't even know that. You really
that is true.
To talk about those areas here. So we've been in the trenches. We know about exactly what's going on. And my brother, this is just my launch of my new media platform. And once you're launching, you have to look to the people who have assisted you over the years. And you've been one of those persons who've been in my corner all the time, through the good, the bad, the indifferent, and you've always motivated me. I thank you for sharing the platform on Vast Sports Media.
Well, my brother, I want to commend you and congratulate you on this new initiative of yours. You continue to be a leader. You continue to prove that you're a thinker and a doer. I really think that this new initiative is a major one. It has the potential of transitioning, transforming the way we see sports, the way we do sports in our respective countries. The use of IT is certainly the way to go. And I can only wish you the very best in this endeavor. The history that we share, I'm humbled by your recollection and your kind words of not only the introductions today, but even your outro. You seem to have this way of doing things. There's an old saying, as I begin, I will end. And so you began by thanking me for the role I would have played in encouraging you. And you're right, it wasn't always a pleasant experience, but you had stick-to-itiveness. You have come a very long way, and I must commend you and encourage you in staying the path. There's much more work to be done. We need more disciples of sports, more honest disciples of sports, persons whose mission is about the advancement of sports and athletes, as opposed to some of them who I see parading around the place with no real interest in sports development. And so, Springer, I commend you, congratulate you, and thank you for the opportunity to be among your first guests on this new and exciting platform.
Hey, God bless you and continue. The man himself on a mission, Chet Greene.
Much love.
Much love.
Much love.